Kalanchoe Pink Butterflies, sometimes referred to as the pink mother of thousands, is a variegated form of Kalanchoe huftoni. The species itself is a hybrid cross between Kalanchoe diagrammantiana and Kalanchoe dielagonesis. That means it's pretty rare. In this video all about the Kalanchoe Pink Butterflies, we'll discuss the plant's appearance, the plant's care regimen, and how to propagate the plant. This plant is viviparous, which means it can produce tiny plantlets along the leaf margins that can readily take root once fallen. Their beautiful pink color is due to a lack of chlorophyll, which means that they often die when separated from the main plant. Pink Butterflies is a rather tall succulent that can reach up to 36 inches in height at maturity. It has an erect stem without branches. The stem is covered in fleshy leaves that resemble a boat in shape. The plant that we're going to unbox today is going to be between 4 and 5 inches. The leaves themselves of this plant are green or brownish green in color with deep purple splotches on the underside. The leaf margins are serrated in line with bright pink plantlets. As stated earlier, these plantlets don't have very much chlorophyll and are likely to die when they fall off of your plant. When in bloom, the Kalanchoe Pink Butterflies produces draw-dropping pink flowers. The flowers measure just over an inch in length and typically appear in spring or summer. They tend to last for the majority of the growing season. If you're looking for a brightly colored plant that's easy to care for, look no further than Kalanchoe Pink Butterflies. This plant requires minimal care and is a great way to brighten up any space. The only special care requirement of pink butterflies is its preferred light levels, but beyond that, it's an excellent choice for succulent gardeners of all experience levels. Since few of the plantlets along the leaf margins will root when detached, it's also a great choice for gardeners who would rather not deal with a lot of plantlets taking root, as is the case with many other Kalanchoe. The Kalanchoe Pink Butterflies is a hybrid between the mother of thousands and the mother of millions. We've got a video comparing the mother of thousands and the mother of millions coming out soon, so stay on the lookout for that. As is the case with most succulents, pink butterflies require a deep watering, but not on a too frequent basis. After watering, the first inch or two of the soil should be allowed to dry out before you water again. This measurement can extend deeper into the soil during the winter when the soil can dry out even more between watering. Kalanchoe are dormant in the summer if grown outdoors, so only water them when you see the bottom leaves begin to shrivel. Though these plants do require more water than most species of succulents, overly wet soil should be avoided at all costs as it can quickly lead to root rot. If you want to learn more about succulent soil and what's the best type of succulent soil for your succulents, then click on the video up there in the top right-hand corner. It's recommended to use a soil moisture meter or your finger to check the soil moisture levels before you water. This is because if root rot is allowed to develop, you likely won't notice until it's too late to keep your plant alive. Root rot is a sneaky disease that takes hold of your succulents below the soil surface. By the time you recognize the rot moving up the stem of your Kalanchoe, there's only one course: beheading it well above the rot and replanting the stem. Obviously, you don't want to do that. Like most succulents, the signs of overwatering are usually quite clear. The fleshy leaves of pink butterflies will become bloated, mushy, and almost translucent. The bottom leaves may yellow and fall off. If overwatering is continued, it's likely that the plant's root will begin to rot. You'll also need to keep an eye out for the symptoms of underwatering. If the leaves of your Kalanchoe begin to appear thin, wrinkly, or shriveled, then you know it's time to water. Depending on where you live, you may also need to adjust your watering schedule to adapt to the weather. Your Kalanchoe will need more water during the hot and dry weather, especially during the active growing season, though it happens to be winter in Madagascar where the plant originates from, while it may need slightly less during the cool or humid weather as well as during the winter. When grown indoors, Kalanchoe Pink Butterflies requires bright light. South or west facing windows should provide said light. An east-facing window may also work, but caution should be taken as strong indirect light can cause delicate hybrid leaves to burn. In the right climate, it's also possible to grow pink butterflies outdoors. When grown outside, it's recommended to plant this succulent in an area with filtered or partial sun. Too much direct sun can burn the leaves, especially if the Kalanchoe Pink Butterflies is exposed to the sun during the hottest parts of the afternoon. When introducing your Kalanchoe to an increased level of light, it's important to do so slowly to avoid sunburning the plant. By increasing the amount of direct light over a period of several weeks, you reduce the risk of damage to your succulent. If you do start to notice any discolored or darkened areas on your plant, it's likely that your plant is getting sunburned and you'll need to move it to an area with reduced light. These areas of sunburn cannot be repaired, but they can be trimmed away if you find them unsightly. Despite its preference for partial sun, pink butterflies is not a plant that's suitable for low light environments. If your Kalanchoe starts to etiolate, you'll need to move it to a sunnier area or invest in a grow light. Etiolate is when it starts to stretch towards the light. It's also referred to as your succulent becoming leggy. Grow lights are an easy and relatively inexpensive way to increase your available light, no matter how dim your home or office may be. Just be sure to get a full spectrum light to ensure that your plant is getting all of the energy that it needs to thrive. Comment below if you'd like to see us make a video about grow lights for succulents. Like other species of Kalanchoe, pink butterflies prefers warmer climates. They are not frost-hardy plants and will not survive a hard freeze. If you live in a climate where winters can be frigid, you'll need to plan on growing your Kalanchoe indoors or bringing it inside during the harsh winters. Even when grown indoors, it's best to avoid areas where sudden temperature changes or drafts may stress your plant out. Otherwise, most indoor spaces are kept warm enough year-round for pink butterflies to grow comfortably. However, if you live in a warm climate, it's completely possible to grow pink butterflies outdoors, so long as you keep it in an area where it's protected from the sun's afternoon rays. As with most succulents, pink butterflies prefer soil that can drain quickly. Look for soil mixes containing larger particles of coarse sand, gravel, pumice, perlite, and even bark. These ingredients are ideal for draining away the excess moisture, as well as providing much needed airflow to the roots. This will help you avoid root rot. You'll want to avoid soil mixes with large amounts of clay, peat moss, and coconut coir, as these ingredients have a tendency to retain moisture. Moisture retention can easily lead to accidental overwatering and the aforementioned root rot. If you're not the type of gardener that makes your own soil, look for commercial soil mix formulated for use with succulents and cacti. These types of soil are ideal for fast drainage. If you can't find exactly what you want, you can always buy a commercial cactus soil and adjust it by adding your own ingredients. I use perlite. The most important feature to look out for when choosing a succulent container is drainage. Though it is possible to grow Kalanchoe in containers without drainage, it's not recommended as you have to be incredibly precise with your watering schedule to avoid overwatering. If you have a habit of giving your succulents too much water, you may also want to use a container made from terracotta. Terracotta tends to absorb some moisture from the soil, whereas glazed ceramic and plastic pots do not. Do you avoid terracotta because it's kind of boring and drab? Well, we're doing a video very soon about how to paint terracotta pots for succulents, so stay on the lookout for that one too. Kalanchoe Pink Butterflies is an incredibly easy succulent to propagate. There are a few propagation methods to choose from, but even the most inexperienced gardener can propagate this plant with ease. For plants similar to pink butterflies, it's typically quite easy to propagate the plant using the tiny plantlets growing on the leaf margins. They normally drop easily and take root with few problems. However, due to the bright pink color and lack of chlorophyll in the Kalanchoe Pink Butterflies, it can be a challenge to get pink butterflies plantlets to root. If you would like to attempt this challenge, be sure to provide your plantlets with plenty of light and moisture to encourage root growth. With any luck, you may see a few tiny roots begin to sprout. Once the roots appear, it's as simple as caring for them as any other Kalanchoe. Pink butterflies can also be easily propagated using stem cuttings. In fact, this tends to be the most popular method of propagation with this plant due to the simplicity of the process. To get started, you'll need to collect a few cuttings from your existing pink butterflies. Choose a healthy section of the stem and cut it away using a sharp, clean pair of scissors or gardening shears. Sharp tools will leave a clean cut and limit the damage to both the cutting and the original plant. Be sure to handle your cuttings carefully, as the plantlets along the leaf margins are quite fragile and can come off with rough handling. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, as you can also try rooting the plantlets if they fall off, but it is something to be aware of. After you've collected your cuttings, you'll need to give them a few days to air dry before you can place them in the soil. This air drying allows their wounds to callus, which helps prevent any potential infection from fungi or bacteria once they're introduced to their new containers. Once the cuttings have calloused, you're ready to plant. At this stage, you can dip the cuttings into a rooting aid, such as rooting hormone powder if you'd like, but this isn't required for healthy growth. It can speed up the rooting process, so it's really up to you whether you want to perform this additional step. Finally, you're ready to place the succulent into any succulent-approved soil. Some gardeners prefer to use sterilized soil for their cuttings to further reduce the risk of infection, but this is also optional. It can take up to a few weeks for roots to appear, so it's important to be patient. Once the roots have sprouted, you can begin treating your Kalanchoe just as you would any other mature plant. If you're feeling particularly adventurous, you can also try propagating pink butterflies with seeds. However, this is the slowest propagation method, so you'll need to be extra patient. Kalanchoe are not the slowest growing species of succulent, but they aren't exactly the quickest growing species either. It can take some time before you have a mature plant. If you already have pink butterflies in your succulent collection, you may try collecting seeds from your own plants. This can be a fun way to experiment with propagation, but if you aren't up to the task, just buy the seeds on the internet. There are plenty of reputable seed vendors online that specialize in selling succulent seeds. Even difficult to find species such as pink butterflies can be found if you're working with the right vendor. Once the seeds are in your possession, you're ready to sow them. Use the same well-draining soil that you would use with a mature kalanchoe, as you'll want to keep the soil moist but not overly wet. Consider using a seed tray or other shallow dish for this project. A shallow dish that can easily be covered will help you control moisture levels. Per usual, avoid overly wet soil as it can cause the seeds or seedlings to rot. You should also avoid placing your seeds in direct sunlight if at all possible. Some gardeners soak their seeds prior to sowing to encourage germination, but this step is really optional. When you're ready, sprinkle the seeds across the surface of your soil, but do not cover them. Again, you'll need to keep the soil moist but not wet. Moist but not wet. After a few weeks, you should begin to see tiny seedlings sprouting from your soil. Once most of the seeds have germinated, you can uncover the container and allow the soil to dry out a little bit more. After the seedlings have reached the size where they seem sturdy enough to withstand transplanting, you can move them to their own containers. Be sure to transplant only when the soil is dry to limit any damage to the root systems. And that's everything we have about Kalanchoe Pink Butterflies. If you have any additional questions, comment them down below and I'll be sure to get an answer for you. See you in the next one. Happy gardening. Bye.